All right, awesome. Well, thank you. And welcome everybody to the demo. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your interest in the school. Please ask all the questions you have. Hopefully you find this little session informative, and hopefully we see you in class. So I am Chef Stephanie. I am an instructor here at Escoffier. I have been here for almost 3 years now. I love teaching. I love meeting students and hearing all the reasons why you're attending, because there can be various reasons. And I have been a pastry chef for pretty much my entire life. I did post in the chat. I am originally from Canada, so you may hear my accent pop out every now and then. And I went to culinary school there, and then I moved to Chicago, and I went to culinary school again in Chicago for pastry specifically. And then my career has been just a little bit of everything. And that's one of the awesome things about Escoffier. There's so many talented instructors here. So I've worked in fine dining, I've worked in casual dining, I've worked at five-star hotels, boutique chocolate shops, boutique bakeries. And my last position before I joined Escoffier was at the Art Institute of Chicago and the Met in New York, which was tons of fun. I felt like I constantly was in the movie Night at the Museum. But now I'm here with you, loving it. So I'm going to show you how to make crepes today. So again, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and we will get those answered for you. So let me switch my video because you are in my home kitchen and I want you to be able to see what we have going on. Okay, awesome. So crepes is what you can see here. This is a French dessert. However, you can use this for so many applications, not just dessert. Crepes are pretty plain on their own. So they're a vehicle for kind of whatever filling that you want to put in these. So today I'm going to show you a few of my favorite fillings, but this is where your creativity can run wild. You can do sweet, you can do savory, you can do these for breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can literally eat these whenever you want. So a crepe is the French's version of a pancake. So, in America, a typical pancake is really big and fluffy. In France, a crepe is this really, really thin, you can see it. It's like paper thin. This is a crepe. So it's their version of a pancake. And you can see I've already prepared some of these. So you can even make these in advance. I've done this, like in a production setting where you would make all of your crepes like this, cut a little square of parchment paper, and then put the parchment between each of the crepes just so they don't stick together, and then wrap them up nicely. You can freeze them, put them in your refrigerator, and then, when you have a busy day, come home, pop them out. You have dinner, you have lunch, you have breakfast, you have dessert, you have a midnight snack, whatever you want. So this is a crepe. Notice a little bit of color, not too much. We're going to cook both sides. They cook really, really quickly. The batter comes together really, really quickly. So it's a pretty quick and versatile little recipe. A few things first. I am going to be using this non-stick pan. This is probably about 6 or 7 inches. And that made the size of crepe that I just showed you. So you can make the crepes any size you want. So if you don't have a small pan, you can use something a little bit larger. You're just going to have to put more batter in your pan. I would absolutely suggest only using a non-stick pan. If you use something else, there's a good chance that the batter is going to stick and it's just going to be a bit of a headache. But I will show you the cooking in just a second. But first, we need to make the batter. And like I said, it is pretty easy. So I have everything scaled out, as you can see here. So I have my flour, I have my eggs. You should have this recipe or it will be coming to you. So you will have all the quantities there. And this is called mise en place. So all my little scalings, let me put the little ones in front so you can see them. It's kind of like a cooking show, right? This is called mise en place, and this is something that you will learn in school. Means everything is ready to go. So once you're ready to start the recipe, it makes the process pretty quick, pretty easy.
Now, Chef Stephanie,
Fun.
we actually
Yeah.
have our first question.
Ooh,
We had somebody
sure.
ask how long you can freeze crepes for.
Oh, yeah, great question. So the freezer, pretty much I would not keep anything in your freezer more than 6 months. You definitely want to make sure it's wrapped really well. Nothing happens necessarily after 6 months. It's not like it's going to go bad. But the reason why I would say 6 months, and I would even go 3 to 6 months, is because I'm sure all of us have had the experience where we've put something in the freezer, we've taken it out, and then we've cooked it, we've baked it, whatever, and we're just like, that doesn't taste as fresh as I was expecting. It's because things in the freezer, when they stay in there too long, or if they're not wrapped well enough, they do get freezer burn. They do start to take on like flavors of the freezer. And it's not necessarily bad. It just doesn't taste as fresh as it could. So I would say when you put something into the freezer, wrap it really well. And I would give it a 3 to 6 month timeline and then eat it up.
Right. We've got another really good question, actually,
Yeah.
regarding flour. Some crepe recipes specify cake flour. Yours says AP. What is your opinion on what type of flour is best for making crepes and why?
Ooh, that's a great question. And you will learn about all the flours in our baking and pastry class. However, so flour, all the flours are different because they have different protein contents. So cake flour is the lowest. Cake and pastry flour sit at the lowest with their protein contents. And then you go to all purpose, and then you go to your bread flour. So cake and pastry flour, when you use them in a recipe, it's going to give you a really nice tender crumb because the protein content is really low. All-purpose flour works just fine. If you want to use cake flour in your crepes, you absolutely can as well. They're just going to be very, very delicate. So that's the sort of lowdown on the different flours. And that's why if you've ever made a cake and you see cake flour, it's because we want that nice tender crumb for our cake. So we use a flour with a lower protein.
All right, and I'm going to hit you with one more question, and then we'll
Sure.
let you get back to demoing, and then we'll address some more questions later on. But how many eggs and what size? Large, extra large?
Yeah. So usually when you are baking, all eggs in a recipe refer to large eggs unless otherwise specified. So if the recipe says use 6 medium eggs, then definitely buy medium eggs. But in most pastry recipes, eggs always refer to large. And I'll give you a few more tips. Butter is always unsalted, and milk is always whole milk, which is 3% milk. I will say though, in this recipe, we do have milk in this recipe and it does say whole milk. However, I do not consume a lot of dairy. So I am actually, you can see right here, my milk is actually oat milk. So you can substitute different dairies in this recipe. So, if you want to make these and you only have 2% milk, absolutely, it's fine. Go ahead and use it. If you are not a dairy consumer for whatever reason, that is perfectly fine. You can use a milk or a dairy substitute and it works just fine as well. All right. So I have my flour in my bowl, and to that I added the salt and the sugar. If you wanted to make these crepes a little bit more savory, so let's say you wanted to do like a mushroom filling or an asparagus filling, I would just omit the sugar, right? Because you don't want them to be too sweet. So I am going to just mix these up. I'm just whisking it ever so slightly just to make sure the salt and the sugar are incorporated into my flour. So it looks like so. So then what we're going to do from there is we have our eggs. Now this recipe that I'm demoing right now is only a half batch. That's why if you notice that, I only have 2 eggs or it looks a little smaller, it's just because I'm doing a half batch for the demo. So the recipe that I've given you is about double the size of this, which is about 1,000 grams, which is going to give you plenty of crepes, but I'm doing a half batch. So once we've mixed our dry ingredients together, super easy, we're going to add our eggs. and just a little bit of the milk. There's no specific measurement here. What we're doing is we just want to mix this mixture here to form a thick paste just to get out all the little lumps. So you just need enough moisture to do that. The eggs alone just wouldn't be enough. So we add a little bit of milk. So we just want to mix this up, and you need to go slowly at first, just so that your flour doesn't fly all over your kitchen. We want to work nice and cleanly. So I might need to add just a little bit more. So just so it comes to a paste. And I would absolutely do this with a whisk. That's what I'm using now. If you were to use a spatula, this is a spatula, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. You're not going to get out all of those lumps as efficient. All right, so we have our paste. That's all we're looking for. You just want it to be nice and smooth. You're just working out all of those lumps. And now we will just finish off the recipe. It's super easy. We're going to add the rest of our milk. So we're just going to gently pour that in. I'm just going to stir it a little bit before I add the rest, just to get it incorporated. You can do this by hand. If you have a mixer, you can do it on a mixer as well, but it comes together really easily by hand. No need to dirty any more equipment than necessary. So I added the rest of my milk, and then I have oil. So the recipe says vegetable oil or clarified butter. So any vegetable oil will work. You want to pick something that's neutral in flavor. So canola oil, grapeseed oil, both of those are really good. If you're not allergic to peanuts, you can use peanut oil. Any type of neutral vegetable oil is perfect. Clarified butter is butter that has had the milk solids and the water removed from it. So you can buy it in the grocery store. It's called ghee. You could use that. Otherwise, you would have to make it. It's a really interesting process. You can definitely Google any video for it. You're basically gently melting your butter, and then what you'll see is the milk solids float to the top, and you just skim those off. And then what you're left with, once you skim all of that milk solids up, you're left with something that's 100% fat. And it's great to use in many different recipes. So you can either use clarified butter or a neutral oil. And I just added both, the rest of my milk and my oil, and I just have mixed this up. And you can see that this is my finished batter. It's pretty fluid, right? When I do this, you can see it's pretty fluid. You want this to be about the thickness of heavy cream. That's what you are looking for. So when you make your batter, if it still seems a little bit thick, you can add just a touch more milk or a little bit of water just to thin it down if it for some reason feels a little bit thick. But that's what we're looking for.
Chef, we've got another question here.
Yep.
This is something that I was actually wondering myself, so I'm glad somebody asked. Do you need to worry about overbeating the batter, like with mixing a cake? That's something I personally can never get right, so I am interested to hear what your answer is.
So that is a really good question, because what happens when you add liquid to flour, you're hydrating the flour, right? And what happens when you hydrate the flour? All of the proteins in the flour start to link up. And then when you mix or you knead, you are now creating gluten. And gluten is in some cases excellent, like in our bread. We want really good gluten development, so we get like that nice, beautiful structured chewiness of bread. But we absolutely do not want the gluten development in a cake, because when we eat a cake, we want something soft and tender. So in this application here for the crepes, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. You're not, mixing a heck of a lot. You really just need to get this mixture here. So as soon as you're here, then you can stop and you're good to go. But definitely if you're making a cake or something similar, cakes, muffins, quick breads, you really want to be careful about how much you're mixing, because you don't want to overdevelop the gluten. But it's not going to happen in this process here. Some people even make their crepe batter in a blender. Some people just put all the ingredients in a blender, buzz it for a couple of seconds, and you're good to go, which you absolutely could do with this as well. But I think it's good to know how to make it by hand, because some of us don't have all of the fancy equipment. And if the fancy equipment breaks, you still need to know how to make it. So once we have this batter done, you need to rest it. So recipe says at least 2 hours or overnight. So if you want to, if you're going to have a brunch the next day, make it the day before, let this sit overnight, and then you can make these fresh that day. But it at least needs 2 hours. And it looks like somebody says orange zest. If you want to flavor this batter, you can. So if you want to add a little zest, lemon zest, orange zest, if you want to do like a spice, like a little hit of cinnamon, that would be perfectly fine too. Again, this is such a neutral base. You can do so many things with it. But if you keep it neutral like this, then you can really experiment with all of your fillings, and you can get super creative with your fillings. All right. So with the magic of TV, I have already made one, of course, because this needs to rest. So this has been resting. I made this morning. So this is ready to go.
So, chef, we actually had somebody just ask why it needs to rest. So, what's the why behind the resting there?
Yeah, so a lot of times things need to rest to develop flavor. So for example, if you were to add a little bit of vanilla extract to this, it's not listed in the recipe, but by all means, if you're going to do a sweet crepe, some vanilla paste in this would be fantastic. So when you rest things, it develops more flavor. Have you ever had like a soup or a stew that you made one night, you ate it for dinner and it was great, but then the next day or even the day after you ate it again and you're like, wow, this is so much better, because the flavors develop when you rest it. The other reason why we rest this is because we did mix it up. This goes back to the over mixing question. We did stir this, and there is flour and it is hydrated with the liquid. So any, gluten that we did develop, the resting period just allows all of that gluten to relax. It's basically the same principle. If you were to make a bread dough, you have to relax the bread dough before you shape it so the gluten relaxes so you can work it. If you've ever made a pizza dough and you're trying to like spread the pizza dough on your sheet tray and it's just snapping back in and it won't spread for you, is because the gluten strands are too tight. You need to let it rest. So just let it have a nap for 10 or 15 minutes and go back, and you'll see that it's much looser and it lets you work with it.
And does it have to rest in the fridge, or can it be rested at room temperature?
I would put it in your fridge. You've got milk in here and eggs in here, so you do want to keep them out of the danger zone temperature. So absolutely, I would rest it in your fridge for sure. And you can even freeze this. So if you make too much or whatever, you can freeze it, label it, absolutely, wrap it, put it in your freezer, and then just thaw it when you want to use it later on. All right, I'm going to turn on my pan and I am going to switch my camera a little bit. All right. So this batter has rested, so it is ready to go. So I have a little 1/4 cup measure in here because that is what I'm going to use to portion the batter into my pan. Use what you have. If you do sign up for this course, we like to find the utensils that you have in your kitchen and make those work. Definitely there are some things you need, but use what you have. So I'm using a little 1/4 scoop measure. A spoon would work. A ladle would work. Anything where you can scoop up a good amount of this batter to get it into your pan. If you really want to be precise about this, if you get a baby ladle, like a 2-ounce ladle, that's almost like perfect for this pan, but we don't need to be super fancy all the time. So I'm going to heat up my pan. I have a little bit of oil that I'm going to pour in here. I'm just using avocado oil, just something neutral. So vegetable oil works really great. You just need a tiny little bit. This is a nonstick pan, so I don't need a lot. I'm just going to put a little bit in here for insurance purposes, so we absolutely don't stick. And I would use oil and not butter, only because butter, yes, tastes better, but butter has a very low smoke point, which means that it starts to burn quickly. So, if you've ever made pancakes and you've used butter, you may notice that the butter starts getting brown around the edges. Those are the milk solids in the butter starting to burn. So that's not going to happen if you use oil. If you really want to use butter, you could do just a touch of butter and a touch of oil and do a mix. Absolutely, coconut oil is perfectly fine. Just know that if you use coconut oil has a little bit of a taste to it. So you will find that your crepes may have a little hint of coconut oil or coconut taste. So as long as that is okay, then by all means. So I added a little bit of oil. It's like probably a quarter of a teaspoon we're talking about. And what I'm going to do is I have a pastry brush and I'm just going to sort of brush my entire pan with the oil. I also sort of get the sides here, just in case some of the batter goes on the sides. And now this brush is thoroughly coated with oil, so I don't need to keep pouring oil in my pan. I can just keep using this brush every time I do a new crepe. Just make sure if you are using a brush that this is boar hair. Don't use a brush with synthetic hairs because the minute that touches the heat, they're going to melt. And then you've ruined your brush. So anything silicone or boar hair works. So we need to heat this pan up just a little bit. Always know that your first crepe may be a sacrifice, and that is okay. I don't think in my entire career I have ever nailed my first crepe. It's kind of like a pancake, right? You kind of got to test out that heat on your pan, and it's perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scoop of my batter, and the pan's been heating for a good minute, and we are going to pour it in the center, and then I am going to tilt my pan so that that batter swirls all around the pan because we want to get that really nice circular crepe. So I might need a bit more batter here. And you may have to do that a few times to really test out how much batter you need for your specific pan size. If you use a bigger pan than this, then you're going to need more batter, and you may just have to test that out. So I pour it in the center and then I swirl like so. And the key is to get these paper thin. So you can see it's pretty much the entire circumference of my pan. I'm going to put that back on the heat. These do not take long to cook at all. Probably, a minute to a minute and a half on this first side, and then we're going to flip it. And then the second side takes no time, like 30 seconds or so. You want a little bit of color, not too much. So you may have to play with your heat a little bit. So, if this crepe doesn't work out, that's okay. We're just testing our heat. But, ooh, it looks really good. Maybe this is the first time I do hit a home run on my first try. My whole career for this one moment. And when you get really good at this, I don't know how many crepes I've made, probably millions. When you get really good, what you can do is if you have enough pans the same size, you can light as many burners as you have and stagger the cooking, right? So we would pour this one in, let it go for like 10 seconds, and then have a pan here, pour the batter in there, then let that one go, and then do a third pan. And then this one is ready. You can come back, flip this one, then this one is ready. So there's really never a dull moment, because right now I'm sitting here waiting for this. In a professional setting, that would never happen. So now we're going to flip it. You can see that I have my spatula. I went under the crepe with my spatula. It doesn't stick at all. And then I am going to use my hands. It is a little bit hot, but I find that's just easier. We're going to flip it over. So you can see that is the color that we're looking for. It's not too dark. It's lightly browned. It kind of does this like lacy effect. That's just, what crepes do. So that's what we're looking for. And then we're just going to put this back on the heat. This second side, it's pretty much cooked. We are just flipping it over so the second side gets a little bit of color. And then that's about it. So I'm going to give this probably 20-30 seconds, and that crepe is done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush my pan, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And you can just keep doing this all day until you run out of batter. And this is how you get good at this really quick. Is there any more questions I can answer while we're waiting for this?
We did have one come in asking if it was okay to use olive oil for crepes. What are your thoughts on that?
In a pinch, you can. If it's the only thing you have, you can. But I would prefer just a neutral flavored vegetable oil. Only again because olive oil, it's made from olives, right? So it does, if you just taste olive oil on its own, it does have a slight taste. You know, you can get really nice olive oils that are a little bit spicy, and what have you. So if you use it, it's still going to work. It's going to be fine. You just have to know that you may get that taste on your crepe. So as long as you're fine with that, then go for it. Especially if you were going to make like a savory crepe, then the olive oil would be fine. So I'm
Right,
going to
we've
make
got
one more.
Chef Stefano, we've got one more question that I did not see earlier. I
Yeah.
apologize. This pertains to using a crepe machine and what temperature you should set it at. Looks like this person said they set it at 400, which was the recommended setting, but ended up scorching their crepes. Tried 300 and it sort of worked, but would like to know what the correct temperature would be in your opinion.
Yeah, so a crate machine, that's a whole bunch of fun. So I just did another one there. If you've ever been somewhere, if anybody doesn't know what a crate machine is, if you've ever been somewhere, like actually somewhere that makes crepes, um, it looks like a circular disc and it heats up. So it's just a flat circular disc and you turn it on and that circular disc gets really hot. And then what you do is you pour your crepe batter right onto that disc, that hot disc. And then you almost have like a little sand rake and you kind of just go around in a circle and it flattens the dough out. So, essentially you're getting one of these without having to twist it. And it does all the work for you. And you can easily, flip it over and put all your fillings in it. It's super fun. So if you have one of those, that is super exciting. I'm going to say that all of those machines are going to be a little bit different. So you're going to just have to fiddle with it until you get the right heat. It's exactly the same as what I'm doing here. Right now, my heat is on low, but that works for this pan and this stove top. If you have an electric stove, you may need to go a little bit hotter. May need to go a little bit lower. So I would say if 300 was not enough and 400 was too much, I would set that crepe machine at 350 and start there. Because you do need it hot enough so that as soon as you put your batter in, it starts to cook. So 300 is probably going to be way too low, but I would start at somewhere between 350 and 375 and go from there. And you may just need to make small little adjustments if it's not where you want it to be. So that one needs a little more time. So that is basically how you cook these. Like I said, the first few that you do may not be spectacular, and that's totally fine. It takes a minute to figure out the heat setting that works best for your pan, and it takes a minute to figure out how much batter you need, because this is important. If you don't put enough, then you're not going to get this full coverage, right? If you put too much, it's going to be too thick. And we want to avoid a crepe that is too thick. Remember, these are supposed to be paper thin, and they should be paper thin throughout. So getting the pan at the perfect temperature and getting the perfect amount of batter is probably the hardest part about this recipe. So it may take you 3 or 4 tries on your crepes, and it's perfectly fine. It happens to all of us. So don't stress out about that. Okay, as soon as this one is done cooking, I am going to show you how you can fill these, because there are many different styles that you can do. Okay, we will let that one finish cooking and we will move our camera back here. Okie dokes. So there's a few ways that you can plate your crepes. So let me just get a few here so I can show you how to do that. All right. So classic crepe presentation is to take your crepe fold it in half like this, and then fold it in half again. So you're basically folding it into a quarter. So you have this nice little triangle presentation. So, if you were to go to like a classic French restaurant, you might get 3 of these served on a plate like so. So that is a classic, let me turn it this way, presentation of crepes. So that's one way you can do it. And then you would put the sauce on top. Another way you can do this is you could put your filling in the middle and you could roll this up. Now, this is going to be only appropriate for a filling that doesn't have a lot of body to it. So for example, if you wanted to do like a dulce de leche or like a caramel sauce, spread it on your crepe and then do one of these and roll it. So it's more like a cigar shape. You could serve them like that, right? And you can put them beside each other. You could put something on top. You could do like ice cream or chantilly cream, a drizzle of sauce. That works as well. So you can present them that way. The last way you can do this, and this is more for like, like if you wanted to do eggs and bacon on the inside or like a savory presentation, you could put your filling on the inside here and then almost do this as a little pocket. So you would fold the edges over, right? And your filling would be in the middle. And then you could fold these edges over here like so. It would be easier if there was filling in it. And then you could flip it over like that. And I have worked in restaurants where we've done the crepes like this. We've made them all ahead of time with the filling. And then they would actually get baked again in the oven. So the exterior would get nice and crispy. And then you could put a sauce on top, all of those fun things. So there is so many applications for these guys. So I'm going to show you.
Is Chef frozen?
Mhm.
Oh, here we go. I think we're good.
Am I good?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
You just froze for a second.
Oh, okay.
We're back.
So one of my favorite toppings for a crepe, it may be super boring. It may seem boring, but it is absolutely not. And this is like a classic French crepe. So you take some butter, wonderful, wonderful butter, soft butter. And you would do this when the crepe is hot, right? So it comes right off the pan. It's nice and hot. You would spread your butter on it. So at this point, the butter would be all melty and delicious. And then this is just regular brown sugar. You would sprinkle the brown sugar on top, like so. And then lemon juice, just a squeeze of lemon, just a little bit. And then you would fold it in that triangle. And it's nice and warm, right? So the butter is melting, the sugar's starting to melt and get all gooey and wonderful. That lemon gives you that hit of acid. And this is fantastic. This is probably, I do not remember when I had this crepe, but this is like my favorite crepe of all time. It is the best. You can just pick it up like this and eat it. Butter's melting all over your face. It's a beautiful thing. So that is presentation 1. Let's do something fun with some strawberries. So let's move this. So I have some strawberry jam, and this is just jam that I bought, which is perfectly fine. So to build some flavor, you can take some strawberry jam and smear it all over the inside of your crepe. Like so. Like that. And then you can fold them up in those beautiful triangles and arrange them nicely on your plate. I have some brown sugar. Okay, so we'll do this one as well. So now there's like a little surprise in there. And you can arrange them like so. And then here, These are some whole strawberries, and I have macerated them. Macerating means that I have put sugar on top of the strawberries, not too much, just a little bit. The sugar is obviously going to sweeten them. The sugar also draws out the juice. You can kind of see all that juice sitting in there. That's what sugar does. Sugar is hygroscopic, which means it draws water, right? So it pulled all of the sugar, or sorry, the sugar pulled all of the juice out of my strawberries. And this is why I have this beautiful little syrup that tastes like sweetened strawberries. You can hit this with a little bit of lemon juice. You can hit this with a little bit of lemon zest, not too much. A little bit of acid brings out the flavor. A little vanilla paste in here would be really nice. It's nice and floral. It'll work with the strawberries really nicely. So then I've got my strawberry jam inside my crepes, and then I'm going to take some of these nice big strawberries and just put them on top of the crepes. Because when you're working with desserts, you want to think about textures, right? Our taste buds, our mouths, we love texture. We want crunchy, we want cold, we want creamy. So you want to try to incorporate those all into your desserts. And definitely the plated desserts course at Escoffier teaches you how to do all of that. So we've got the jam inside, we've got the nice whole berries on top, and then we take that beautiful syrup and just kind of go around the plate. Creates a little sauce, makes it look beautiful. So now you have a little sauce for your crepes. And then you could even go one farther. If you want to dust this with a little powdered sugar, you can. If you wanted to do a little rosette of chantilly cream, you could. If you wanted to do some ice cream, you could. Again, there are so many things that you can do with these crepes. But I love berry crepes. So I decided to show you this. Pastry cream. Yes, I saw that in the chat. Pastry cream would be fantastic in these crepes. And I can't really think of anything that wouldn't work inside a crepe. Any types of sauces, any types of filling. I have a nut butter here. So this is like a peanut and almond butter. You could just simply spread this in the crepes. You could slice some bananas on top of it, garnish it with chocolate sauce. I'm telling you, it's basically, if you can imagine it, if you can create it, it's going to work in a crepe. So that's what I got for you. Do we have any more questions?
All right, it looks like we are good for now. Thank you so much for that demonstration, Chef Stefanie. I got a question for everybody. Who's making crepes tonight? Crepes for breakfast, crepes for dinner? I'm a big fan of breakfast for dinner myself, so
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
thank you for having me. And I hope to see you, some of you in the program. So have a fantastic afternoon.
All right, thanks again.